Have our head back in my little workshop. Got that awesome Rocket Bunny picture. That's the inspiration right there. Anyways, so got our head laid out. We're gonna first start tearing this apart. We're gonna start with our solid lifters. These, just use a magnet. You just pull them out. But these, you want to keep them in the exact same position that they came out. So I'm just going to lay everything up here, and this way it's going to be the front of the engine. So I'm just going to start with this, and I'm just going to zoom fast forward right now. You get the point of that. Now we have all our solid lifters off. We could take the keepers out of the valve so we can actually get the valve out. We're using this Lisle tool, or Lisle tool. Pretty sure it's Lisle. I'll put the part number in the description, but it's just a magnet to catch your keepers as you take them out. Pretty cool tool, but what you need to do is take a wad of tissue, or shop towels I mean, and put it inside the combustion chamber on the head, so it lessens that distance between the head and the valves and the combustion chamber in your surface. So do that, press it down so the valve stays stiff inside there so it doesn't move. Put your Lisle tool on your valve, and you either want to hit it with a hammer, or sometimes you can do it with your hand. There we go. So we got our keeper, and we have the two keepers inside this tool right here. So again, just like everything else on your head, you want to put it back exactly how it came off. So we're going to put this in order also. So this is valve 1, this is the valve spring, intake cylinder. We're going to place it with everything else here in order. And to show you really quick, lift our head up a little bit, and you could push the valve out from the top. There we go. That's one intake valve right there. And you just want to repeat that with all the rest till we get them all out. For the sake of you doing this job, don't pull out all the valves one by one. I was just doing that just to show you on video, but keep your wad of shop towels inside the combustion chamber. Take off all 4 keepers on that cylinder, then you can lift it up and take it all out. Just obviously cuts a lot faster that way. So we have all of our valves out, and lifters and everything all laid in a row, lined up exactly where it corresponds. The front of the engine is this way, so it's all laid out. Here's our bare head. That valve that was in cylinder 3 on the intake side, it wasn't mating with the surface, so there was a lot of gap. So I just put it on the straight edge and spun it by hand gently, and it seems flat. It appears flat. And I noticed once I took the valve out of the head, there's actually a lot of carbon buildup on the other side here on the bottom. So once I cleaned it up, it was mating with the surface of the valve. So I think it might be okay. I won't know until I lap all the valves and put it all back together. Right now we're actually going to clean the ports, all the ports on the head. And I'm not trying to polish the ports, because port and polishing is something completely different. it's a lot more involved, and you have to get your head flow tested at a machine shop and everything. So I'm just trying to clean out all the carbon using different size wire brushes on the drill bit. So let's start doing that. So this is how it looks so far with using our wire brush. Looks pretty damn good. I haven't sprayed it off with cleaner yet, so still need to do that. But so far, this cylinder head's looking pretty damn decent. You're just cleaning it in your backyard. So let's keep going. We're going to turn this head over. We're going to take out our valve stem seals on top here. These can be a little tricky. If I could find my pliers, we could start doing this. So getting the valve stems out can be a little tricky. They sell tools at most auto shops that will pull these out, but they're too big to fit inside the KA head. So everyone has their own method. I am just using this method of putting vice grips over the valve stem seal and pulling up. Now you don't want to squeeze your vice grip too hard over the seal. You see how it's just barely enough room to clear the seal? Because you don't want to force it over your seal down there. So this is tedious work. Just keep on going until you get all 16 out. Now we're going to clean up the head just really quick, because we still have to lap our valves, and that's going to get pretty messy. So we're just going to do a cleaning right now. But after you finish lapping your valves, we're really going to do a deep clean. So find some place where you can buy a lot of cheap brake parts cleaner and degreaser and get to work. Our head back in our workshop. I think this looks pretty damn good for just a backyard cleaning job, and everything. It's looking pretty damn good. So now we can start lapping our valves. This is always the fun part, because the valve lapping tool that you buy always doesn't work. It doesn't always work. Sometimes they're a little tricky, but I have had success with them. So let's try it out. So I got way ahead of myself. We need to clean our valves since I'm not buying brand new valves. We're gonna use our Berryman Chem Top cleaner, parts cleaner. So of course you want to keep them in order. So I'm just gonna do these 2x2 and keep them in order. So this is gonna go a little slow. So need to find something else to do in the meantime. Actually, we're gonna do this 4x4 and put these in the container like if it was in the cylinder, with the intakes on one side, the exhaust on the other side. And do it that way. Slowly drop them in here so they stay standing up. Bam. Alright, let's pull one out, see how it is. It's okay. Yeah, it's pretty clean. Stuff's pretty good. So while we're doing each set, we could lap the valves at the same time. After cleaning each one of your valves off, you want to check them. Just make sure they don't have any cracks that you can visibly see, of course. So just do that while you're cleaning them. Now we can start lapping our valves. And before we start, I'm going to tell you, this is not going to be fun at all. It's not. This is super tedious and it takes a while. So we have our valve grinding compound. We have our valve. And you want to apply it just to the edge of the head of your valve, where it seats into the head. You want to put a pretty good amount right there, all around. And then you want to take fresh oil and you want to put it on the stem, because we're going to be inserting it back into the head and needs lubrication so it can spin freely. So we have that lubed. I'm going to go ahead, drop it down our head there. I'm going to take our valve lapping tool, and to make it stick better, actually, I dab the head of the suction cup into oil, press it against the valve, and you start spinning. Now just keep doing this over and over and over. Keep doing that till you hear the compound. You could hear it's not really grinding as much, so that means the compound's pretty much used up. Go ahead and take your valve out, and we're gonna go ahead and wipe off a compound. And we can see now we got a pretty shiny surface right there. And if you take it on our head side, go ahead and wipe off that compound, and you see we got a shiny surface in that valve too. Now this cylinder 1, if you remember, cylinder 1 was actually in good shape. It wasn't leaking at all, so I'm not going to spend that much time lapping these in cylinder 1, because you could see it's making a pretty good contact. So we're actually going to consider that one done and move on to our next exhaust side. Go ahead and put it back in order and move on to the next one. So after you get done lapping every valve, go ahead and slide them back into place on the appropriate cylinder. Now before we put this all back together, I actually wanted to show you the point of valve lapping is to get rid of all the pits that are on the valve and on your head. So that's what your nicely lapped valve should look like. It should look very shiny and smooth, and same with same with the valve that it goes into. It should look the same. So that's the point of it, is to get rid of all that pitting that you could physically see. I almost forgot the valve stem seals actually. So let's put those on, then we could put our springs and everything else back on. So to make it easier, put your wad of shop towels or tissues under the combustion chamber, and you let's get this camera positioned good. Alright, so you want to have all your stem seals just soaking in oil because it helps create a better seal. What you do, you take one and you work it over the valve that's already inside there. Gently work it over, push it down a little bit, and I take a deep 10 mil socket and push it down. You want to push it down until you hear like a little squirt. Let's see, it still has a ways to go, so you could actually use a hammer too. You want to make sure that it's really seated in there. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Push it down with your hand first. Take your deep socket, press it down gently. Listen for a little squirt. Alright. Let's take our next one. Push it down. You should be able to hear it. Alright, you just keep doing that with the other ones. We have our springs and retainers placed on top. So we're going to push down the retainers so we could assemble the valve train back together. So what you do, wad up your shop towels, paper towels, whatever. Put it inside the combustion chamber on the head. Push it down firmly so it keeps your springs, or it keeps your valves really stiff. We take our tool, our Lisle tool, and put it together, and you put it over your retainer and you push it down. And that didn't work. I think we need more tissue on the bottom, or shop towels I mean. Actually, you gotta make sure that your let's go ahead and push them back up. Okay, form that ball again. Press it down really hard. Press it down really hard. Okay. Now, okay, so let's try this again. For our tool. Let's see, so put our tool over the retainer, press it down, and use your hammer. Smack it down. And you see, pushes our retainers back over our valve. So go ahead and repeat that on each one. Let's go ahead, put it over, give it a good whack. There we go. Let's go ahead and repeat that until you get all of them back in. Have all the keepers pressed back in. Our valves are in place, and I know the time lapse is pretty quick, but as you can see, you could actually press these in with your hand too. Just use both hands. You could press them down. It's possible, or you can just use a hammer, whack it. Whichever way, it doesn't really matter. Whichever way you prefer. And if you saw at the end of the time lapse too, I actually took out these, took off these valve keepers because I got a little piece of the shop towels stuck in between the valve seats. Now you obviously want to make sure you don't do that because you need a good seal. So you should probably use like lintless shop rags instead of the shop towels, just so you don't have that issue. So what you want to do is you want to put your spark plugs back in and tighten them down, of course. So we're doing the water in the chamber again, seeing if we have leakage. So cylinder 1, the first time, we didn't have leakage there. It actually held our water, and it's doing the same thing again. Let's go ahead, pour the water in cylinder 2. We had leakage here. Wow. So it is holding that water. It's not leaking in the intake side, and it's not leaking from our exhaust valves either. Let's go ahead and do cylinder 3. Cylinder 3, if I remember right, had some pretty good leakage. Wow, once again, we are holding water. Excuse me. Let's go cylinder 4. Cylinder 4, we had leakage too. And we have nothing. It's holding water. All the cylinders are holding water on both the exhaust and intake side. So now let's see our compressed air, see if we have bubbles coming out. I'm running out of compressed air.
This is a Homage beat.
Now if you didn't have compressed air actually, or the cans, you could actually just leave it sitting in the cylinders, leave the water sitting here, and I'll have to look up exactly how long it is, but if it won't hold inside the cylinder for a certain amount of time, then you know you still have valve leakage. But right now we are still doing really good. The water's been sitting in each chamber for, I would say, at least 4 minutes, at least. I've noticed slight droplets of water coming down in cylinder 2 and 3. So I add the straw extension on the compressed air, and our intake valve is leaking on both of those sides. Barely on that side. A little bit in 4. A little bit in 1 actually, but it's holding water. So we got intake. We got this one leaking, that one leaking, this one leaking slightly. Okay, so we have this one leaking, that one leaking, barely leaking, but this one actually hasn't dropped any water at all. So 2 and 3. So even though they're holding really well, I am going to take these out and relap them just to make sure I have a really good seal. I mean, you're going this far, doing all this work, you might as well relap it if it's still leaking. So let's go ahead and turn the head over and relap. Okay, so we re-lapped those valves and reinstalled. Turn the head over, more water, and hopefully we still have a good seal. And hopefully those 3 that we just relapped are sealed up pretty well now. Okay, so water is sitting in each chamber right now. Don't see any physical leaks. And take your compressed air, or if you have an air compressor, check the valves again. So this head is secure and combustion chambers are holding. So that's valve relapping right there. Let's go ahead and we're going to put our solid lifters back over the corresponding valve that came off of. Actually, go ahead and clean these up before you put them back on. So let's do that. Have our lifters back in place, and if you saw in the time lapse, dab each lifter end into oil so you can slide it in, because these are pretty tight in here, and if you're having issue getting it back in, don't force it in. Try to wiggle it back out, maybe lube it up some more with oil, and then try turning it around into a different spot and setting it in there. It should go in pretty easy. Some of them are a little difficult, so just lift it back up, lube it, and try to put it back in. So here's our rebuilt head, backyard rebuilt head. I think it turned out pretty damn good. I'm happy with the results. So now we have to put it back on the car.